the impact you can make when you bring artists and audiences together in real time. There isn't anything like it. AI cannot replicate that feeling.
Oh, she said it.
Was in a production of Macbeth, and there's a child. Her child is in that show. That was eye-opening. I think at that moment I caught the theater bug. It's great. It was like, oh, this is what storytelling can be.
On this episode of the Matthew Byrd
Podcast.
Podcast.
One saw the pandemic.
Yes. Laura Kendall, Executive Director of the Morrison Center in Boise, Idaho, joins us on storytelling, leadership, and the future of live experience.
Our lives are not duplicates of each other.
Nope.
Everybody has their own path that they're on, twists and turns that are had. That is where good storytelling is. And only humans can do that.
When you see something that somebody paints by hand, you connect with it in a way that you'll never connect with something that was not by human.
That moment will never be the same. It can't be duplicated.
It is not curious. It is not creative.
Over half of adults say they feel isolation, depression. They don't know how to gather together and feel that sense of belonging.
What I'm trying to get to, though, is what do you think businesses could learn from the creative world? Hey guys, before we listen to the full episode, we wanted to ask, if you're liking this content, would you please subscribe to the channel and like the video? It really helps me and our team grow this podcast and bring in more awesome guests to the channel. Thank you, and back to the episode. All right, welcome to the studio, Laura. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Tell us where you currently work and what your role is. I know, but I want to share with the audience, and then we'll dig in a little bit.
Great. Well, I'm the executive director of the Velma V. Morrison Center for the Performing Arts.
That is awesome.
On the campus of Boise State University. So it's one of those across the country performing arts centers that's attached to a university. A lot of performing arts centers in bigger cities are standalone, but we have the wonderful association with Boise State. We're close to students and faculty, so that makes it a lot more fun.
That's very cool. And for us, that's kind of a unique and special place for those that know our community or listen to the podcast. That's the venue we've held our conference at the last 3 years. So it's been a very special time for us as well.
Well, we've loved having you. You have helped us realize how that space can be used. And I remember the first year you all were in our space and there were robot dogs climbing our stairs and I lost my mind. It was the most cool thing I've ever seen. And I know you took them outside and they were on the greenbelt and people were stopping. What is this? Now you see them a lot more, but I think that was pretty cool that you brought that to the center.
Yeah, well, we enjoyed it, and it's fun. It's probably fun for you in a venue like that where you get to experience a lot of different types of events.
We do. Yes, there's very rarely do we say no. If it's a performance or anything that's going to work on our stage, we like to say yes as much as possible. And I think that's probably why we're at capacity and so busy.
Well, I want to go back a bit and then we'll work our way more toward kind of current and what you do. But I love hearing some of the stories of the guests that come on the podcast, not just what they do today and their career, but some of the story of like, how did you get into performing arts? How did you get into the world that you're in?
Yeah. I've had a lot of different jobs and a lot of twists and turns, I think, to my career. So I'm a Nebraskan, born and raised, so I'm a Husker, and grew up in Lincoln, which is a lot like Boise, fun college town. It's also the capital, also on one edge of the state where most of the population is, and then it's wide open, a lot like Idaho. So I feel very at home here because of where I grew up, and I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So there's a lot of us. They're all my half brothers and sisters. I'm, the age difference, my brother who's the closest in age to me is 7 years older. So I felt like I was sort of like an only child, but then had this huge family, which was amazing. And my sister was in college when I was in the 4th grade, and she was in a production. She was a theater person. So I always grew up going to watch my big sister Crystal on stage, and I loved it. And it was always so much fun. And I love the magic of theater. And I, didn't really do it, but was the best audience member. And she was in a production of Macbeth. She played Lady Macduff, and there's a child. Her child is in that show. And so I took that role. She's like, my little sister could do it. And that was eye-opening. I think at that moment I caught the theater bug. And it was the most incredible experience. I was the only kid. I was with all these college kids, and I thought I was so cool. And what I think really solidified it for me is the director explained the Shakespearean story to me, and the hidden piece where, there's the prophecy of when the forest meets the castle. Well, that's when your kingdom will end. But instead, it was really a prophecy that was hidden, meaning where the townspeople with branches and on fire marched up to the castle, and that was actually the ending. And I think when I was in the 4th grade, it was like, oh, this is what storytelling can be. This is what live theater is. And I had such a great time. So that started my journey.
That's cool.
I didn't do sports as a kid. I think I tried to do track once, and that did not work. I was just not built for it. But I was certainly built for the theater. And so I did that all through junior high and high school. And when I got to college at the University of Nebraska, you sit down with a counselor and they're like, well, what do you want to major in? And I had no clue. I don't know. And they said, well, what did you do in high school? Well, I did theater. All right, well, we'll just put you in the theater department. So that's where I stayed.
Okay.
And had incredible professors. Met my husband-to-be there. He was an actor. He was in the grad program. And at that point, it was really about, okay, what do I want to do? At that point, my sister was living in Los Angeles. I had gone to visit her a bunch. She worked in the film and television world. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. After I graduate, I'm going to move to LA. So I did. And I kicked around there for about 6 years. I was a freelance script supervisor. I worked for Disney. I worked for an acting coach. I did a bunch of stuff. And my time at Disney was amazing because I was on the studio side and we worked for The Wonderful World of Disney. If you remember those Sunday night TV show movies. So I was on the production end of that. Cool. And I loved it. But I really did miss live performance. And LA is really not the place for live performance. And that city was hard. I was there the end of the 90s. And, I think I got there in 96, I think. And we left in 2001. It was just at that point in time, I didn't see a future there for me without having to really kind of do what didn't feel really very natural, which is like the hey and work the room. And I'm more of a one-on-one kind of, let me get to know you. Yeah. And that's not that city. Yeah. And so I felt very discouraged. And so I went, you know what? We're going to go back to Nebraska for a year and figure things out. And I ended up staying, I think 6 years or 8 years. Got my graduate degree. And I think this is where I started to work for a community theater. I was teaching young people theater and I was directing and I was happy, but I was also, I don't know what to do with this. And there was the Lead Center on the campus of the University of Nebraska, which I grew up knowing. Did not even occur to me that there were jobs there. And they reached out and said, hey, we have a new position that we think you'd be great for. And so I applied and I got the job. And so I was the Associate Director of Community Engagement and Learning, which is a super long title to basically say you run the education programs, and when artists come to town, you connect them with theater students or across the state of Nebraska into small communities. So that's what I did for about 5 years. And that's really where I entered into this industry. And I think that was the moment where I went, okay, this is my community. This is what I want to do. But I really want to do programming. So I got my grad degree at UNL while I was working full time. And then in 2009, when we all remember 2009, with everything, the crash, all of the financial issues, we decided to move.
Yeah.
If I had to get a new job and move. And jobs were hard to find in this industry. I'm sure every industry. And so I took a job in Cleveland, Ohio, where I got to do some programming, which was really what I wanted to do. And I stayed there for a few years. And then I kind of bopped around from there, working my way up, and where I really found sort of the love of everything that theater provided, being a director provided, was leading teams and really setting the vision for an organization. So that's what I've kind of been doing ever since. And so this is my third or fourth move in my industry.
Cool.
And when this job came open at the Morrison Center as the executive director, I just saw so much potential and possibility. And that was 6 years ago. And of course, no one saw the pandemic and what that was going to mean for the industry. But we made it through and have emerged stronger than ever. So, and I attest that to the incredible team at the Morrison Center. I barely had my feet under me when all that happened.
Yeah.
And, there was longtime folks who had been there and really kind of saw us through this incredible, wild time in our history, right? I think people will be looking back at that time and trying to figure out what all happened and how and what it all meant. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Yeah, it was a wild time. And for our industry especially, I don't think, anybody imagined we would be closed for 18 months.
Yeah.
And so that was a real eye-opener about how do you build models that will, business financial models that will allow you to have something like that happen.
Yeah.
And luckily we were able to make it through. There was, a lot of people in our industry working really hard with the government to be able to offer what was called an SOS grant. Save Our Stages is what it was called. And then it became SVOG grant, but it really replenished what we lost without any revenue.
That's awesome. That's great.
So wild time. But that's just my little background on kind of where I've been. I've hopped around a lot in my career.
Unpack, some of the journey and maybe I'm sure there are many people who don't know what does the executive director do? What is your what is your overall goal and mission in your position?
So it's mainly and it changes from day to day, but for the university, when they hired me, they were looking for the Morrison Center to be more connected to the community, more connected to the university. It was interesting when I got there, a lot of people didn't even know the Morrison Center was actually part of the university. They saw it as maybe it's city-owned, maybe it's totally separate. And how do we serve the needs of the students and the faculty as well as the community? So that was sort of my mandate when I came on board, which is right up my alley. That's my jam. I love doing that kind of work. And also really building out stability financially. We were very understaffed when I got there. So part of my job was also to kind of right that ship a little bit, hopefully increase pay for people. Again, the pandemic was something that really, I think, broke open our industry and the pay discrepancy and a lot of issues. So we were working on that. So my day-to-day is really getting out in the community, making sure we are, people know what we're about, who we are and what we're doing, and helping the team with whatever I can do to take away the barriers that they may be facing to do their great work. So that's basically it. Yeah. And I report to the president of the university.
Okay.
So that's been really helpful because I think for the Morrison Center, we look at ourselves like there's athletics, that's sort of the front door, and we have the back porch or something like that, where you can hang out with us,
Yeah.
And, since I've been there in the last 6 years, we've increased our not only the events that we do and the capacity there, but the number of people that are coming through the hall and experiencing a live show. So that's awesome. Been really fun.
That's very cool. Yeah. For the Morrison Center specifically, when it comes to the types of shows and things like that, it does seem very varied. Is there Is there some type of like goal or mission or behind what events or preferences of type of events, or like how does the venue think about that?
Yeah, that's a super good question. So a venue like ours really succeeds based on volume.
Okay.
So what's really important is to get shows in and out. And we are mostly a touring facility.
Okay.
So we work with promoters, in local promoters, but then also the big dogs like AEG and Live Nation and those folks who buy tours and are looking for venues across the country. So we're a rental facility where we don't have a lot of say necessarily in the types of shows that are coming. We definitely do our due diligence and make sure we're not bringing something in that could be offensive or, something that's going to, we have a contract with the university or the university's contract with the artist to make sure that, all of that is good. But if they're touring nationally, then there's been some vetting, other venues as well. So we feel pretty confident that this is an important thing to bring to our community. May not be for everyone, but it will be for someone.
Sure.
So that's why we're so varied in what we do. The piece that is kind of our bread and butter that we work with, our national partner, which is Broadway Across America, and we bring our Broadway series in. So that's really where we have a hand in the types of shows that we choose and that we bring in. We have a subscription model. So we have 11,600 subscribers this year, which when I got here was around 6,000. So almost doubled, which is pretty fabulous. And we went from doing 5 performances a week to now 8.
Wow.
So pretty great growth in a short amount of time. But basically, Boise is now on the touring circuit for just about every big concert. And between us, Extra Mile Arena, Ford Center, like we've got enough venues in our community that we're attracting really big artists, which is exciting.
It's very cool.
It is very cool. And so we don't really have to travel that often to go see incredible shows that are going to the bigger cities.
That is really cool. What, I came across an article, and this isn't my world, so I don't know a lot about it, but the opportunity that you got to represent for Idaho in the Tony Awards.
Yeah, so the Tony Awards are like the Oscars for Broadway, and there are many voters across the country. I think when we went to a full week market, and I've always been a part of the Broadway League, which is the big organization out of New York City that represents all the agents and managers and shows and publicity people, and then venue managers like myself and producers. They're always looking for a diverse group of people to represent the country in the voting. And so, the application, the opportunity came up, and I thought, you know what, let me just try and see, they probably won't pick me because why would they? And lo and behold, they're like, we need someone from Idaho. That's an important community that we want to make sure is represented.
That's awesome.
So I take it very seriously. Yeah. It's a wonderful, amazing part of the job. I'm in New York probably, once a month, 9 months out of the year.
Wow. Going
to see shows, and I try to see everything that makes its way and opens on Broadway. And it's an industry that I truly love and admire. And I know just the insider, if we want to talk a little insider talk here, how hard it is to get a show on Broadway. The amount of money it takes and the investment and the risk is really high. However, it's not as risky as going into, a startup, actually. The return is actually higher if you invest in Broadway, funny enough.
Yeah.
So, but it's an incredible industry. It's also going through growing pains and shifting, priorities and needs. Like there's a lot of things going on. Prices are really high. Ticket prices are really like, how do we balance all of this stuff? So there's really a moment that's happening for Broadway that I think that's happening for entertainment everywhere.
Yeah.
We see it in Hollywood. We see it, with condensing, if Netflix is going to get, Warner Brothers, like all of this is happening.
Yeah.
And it impacts our industry. It impacts every industry in some way. So, entertainment is such a huge part of, our country's GDP, honestly. It's huge.
It is.
So I pay attention to all of this that's going on because I find it really fascinating, but I also look for signals of, okay, how is this going to impact what we do here in Boise at the Morrison Center?
Yeah. What's your favorite part of being involved with putting on live events?
So my whole, purpose for getting into this world is I love the impact you can make when you bring artists and audiences together in real time. Mm-hmm. There isn't anything like it. AI cannot replicate that feeling. It is.
Oh, she said it.
I did it. But it is absolutely magical when you're sitting in a room with 2,000 strangers who soon become your community as you are watching a story unfold, or you're seeing the most amazing artistry that humans can make.
Yep.
And with their body, with their voices, with their storytelling, whatever it is, like that is pretty powerful.
Yep.
And sports does the same thing. It's just slightly different.
Yeah.
So you are in an audience, again, with a bunch of strangers, but you're in competition.
Yeah.
There's a winner and there's a loser, or you're watching a human compete against their own score or whatever that is. So there is a moment of, that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But when you see a really good show, you hopefully are taking that home with you and unpacking it, or you're having conversations about it, or you're trying to understand, wow, that did not sit well with me. Why?
Yep.
What does that mean? What didn't I love? Or that I saw myself on stage. That was my story. That was my life. And it's affirming. Yeah. And it feels like, oh, this is what life is. It's just a different feeling. So
yeah, that's an interesting that's an interesting comparison to think about, how going to a sporting event, half of the arena is going to leave disappointed.
That's right. That's right.
Versus going to a concert or going to, it's maybe in a very rare case someone leaves disappointed, but usually it's like people are going because they want the experience. They like the either type of music or type of show, or it is 99% a very positive experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think there is something to be said. I think both are so important, because we learn from disappointment as well. Yep. We learn how to deal with it. Yep. And I think that's very valid and very important. Sportsmanship, let's be good stewards of, whatever that experience is, and be good neighbors.
Yep.
So I love sporting events, but that is not what I do. But what we share, I think, is the ability to bring people together. How we do that, what is that customer service experience like? What are the amenities that we can surround that experience with to even just heighten that experience even more?
Yep.
And that's everything from, food and beverage to the information you get before you get out of your car. Like, we think about every single piece of that experience. And I think, anytime you're in an arena, there are people who have thought through every single moment that you have taken to try to make sure it's frictionless, it's fun, it doesn't, you have to have safety and security balanced with, we don't want this to take 4 hours for you to stand in line in the rain. How do we manage all of these things? So when you that's what I do, is work with our teams at the Morrison Center to think about every single moment that someone might be experiencing, because you don't want something to then make that moment in the theater, that opportunity to have that aha moment or that experience that is transcendent. That's what we're all hoping to do, is go into the theater, not have distraction, but have a communal experience. You don't want anything to interfere with that. So we don't always get it perfect every time, but we strive for it.
Yeah. I know you guys obviously already do a lot of live events, but even back to your comment about, what AI can't replace. We talk about AI a lot and emerging technology and all that. And I've been telling people that I think the more the AI and technology are coming into play in all areas of our lives, I think it will create an opportunity for even more in-person, more exclusive, more real, more tangible, things. Because even as an example, I talk about art, right? How much does someone pay for a piece of art that was painted 200 years ago versus someone could generate something on AI that looks way better right now in 3 seconds? But why do we value the old things, right? It is in person. It was back before there was technology. It was very, it was by hand. And it's why we're focused on putting on events too, is like we connect so much online. This podcast is going to go out on all the social platforms and people might look at it and learn, but the opportunities of putting on an in-person event and getting people together to actually meet and discuss and shake hands and like the relationship building and the things that come out of in-person are just irreplaceable. And I think that's just going to scale to be even more so the more that the, digital and the content are out there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it will absolutely drive people to come together. And I am not sad about that.
Yep.
I think we need that. We desperately need that. I think I read something, a report that went out by the American Psychological Journal or something like that said that over half of adults say they feel isolation, depression. They don't know how to gather together and feel that sense of belonging. And that's really sad to me. And I feel like that's what we both do when we bring people together around topics or ways for people to engage with each other in real time, in real life, is really going to be so valuable. I think we went through the period where everything was only online. We tried conferences all online and thought, this is great. Now we don't have to travel.
It's cheap. It's fast. It's instant. Yeah.
And I think people went, this is not it for me. I think there's always going to be an element of that. And I think that's great because that brings access to folks who maybe can't, travel or do the things. But I think the real in-person gathering is going to be where AI gives us the most value back, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the piece that's really going to be great.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, and maybe you know way more than I do on the twists and turns that are ahead of us with what AI is going to be able to do and how it's going to change our work and how it's going to change habits and consumerism and all the things. Like it will change it.
Yep.
But I'm so curious about what you mentioned, which I think is really smart, and I want to touch on it, is with people who buy art, you can buy something that has been generated through a machine, but what is it about the human touch that is so important for all of us? And once we know that and have experienced that, then that's where the value is. And I think there's something to be, because from what I understand, AI is gathering stuff that's already been done and regenerating it, putting it together. And I think that's really helpful in some ways and will be helpful in a lot of industries. But what human beings can do are the twists and turns. And our lives are not duplicates of each other.
Nope.
Everybody has their own path that they're on, twists and turns that are ahead, things that they didn't know were coming. And that is where good storytelling is.
Yeah.
That is where good, art comes from.
Yep.
You talk about Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which was very satisfying because we know what that's like, but where the story becomes interesting is when it becomes a new twist on that, formula in some way. And only humans can do that, I think.
Yeah.
At least I hope.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's true that, the AI most people use is just math. It is just it is just predicting and giving you words out of its language models and whatnot. It is not curious.
Yeah.
It is not creative. It is responding to prompts you give it to what it thinks you want to hear, and you can do a lot with it. And I think it's going to get to be the point that it is amazing what can be done with it. But I don't think that it will ever replace the desire for the human aspect. And even back to the painting, right? Is like, we are human. And I think just mentally, when we see something that a computer generated, even if it looks cool, it's like, yeah, it's just a digital, creation from AI though. But when you see something that somebody paints by hand, you know, because you've held a paintbrush before, how hard it is to make something that looks amazing.
Yeah.
So you connect with it in a way that you'll never connect with something that was not created by human. And I think the same goes for listening to music. And, you know, I've heard AI generated music that sounds incredible, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, but it's fake.
Right.
You know, maybe I'll still listen to some of it sometimes, but I'm never going to go sit in a theater and listen to AI music. Like, I want to see a human sing because I know I've heard a lot of people sing, and that person is really unique.
Right.
Like, I just don't think no matter how far AI or technology goes, it will ever take that desire out of people.
Well, and here's the part that I think is where AI can't go, and it's what is so human, is to make a mistake. And if you're in a live performance, or, you know, and you have those rare opportunities when something doesn't work or goes, it goes a little awry, or your favorite performer goes up, totally forgets the next lyric, whatever. And you know, and there is a moment that happens in that theater that's electric. And you got to be in that moment with them, and you worked through it, and that moment will never be the same. It can't be duplicated. So AI cannot do that. You can sit in a hall and you can listen to perfect AI music, but you won't have that opportunity to see. And I think this is what's really beautiful about being human, is the mistakes and the errors that happen because we're humans. That's really something special. And I'm like, failure. Yeah, failure is the way to go. But that's vulnerability.
It's because it's real too. It's just
cracks open your heart, right? When you see someone be vulnerable, or you see something not go the way it was supposed to go, and you take that human's side, that person's side, like, oh no, we're with you. We want you to succeed. I can't tell you, I can count like how many times I've been in the hall. I remember them vividly where, you know, a piece of set didn't move right, or a microphone wasn't working. And so then all of a sudden someone had to like just take the microphone off and sing and project and use their skills. And you're like, whoa, that was incredible. I can't believe that happened. And that reminds me of why we're so incredible. Humans are so capable of doing some amazing things. And that is what I think we're going to value as a society moving forward. And I hope that we value it so much that we pay our artists and we make sure that they get the credit that they deserve for the work they're doing. Because if we're going to get new music, new styles, new things to appreciate, only humans can do that. And we need our artists to be doing that to push us forward so we have new experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, man, there's so many good things in there. Okay, we've talked about a lot of the good and the fun and the parts you love. What are the difficulties of what you deal with in your role?
I mean, it is so we're going through a moment. I think the performing arts in general are all struggling to figure out what is our way forward. I mean, I think this was happening before the pandemic. The pandemic just kind of illuminated some of the issues. And a lot of it is resources. You know, I think for smaller regional theaters that we absolutely depend on for creative work, many of them are struggling. So those of you that are listening and are in communities that have regional theaters, please support them. That is where new work happens, especially in the theater. But I mean, your small music venues, your small artists that are, trying to figure out their way forward, that's where the support needs to be, because the resources, everything is so much more expensive to produce and to create. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we balance that real costs? People deserve to be paid a living wage in our industry. I'm not disputing that. Like, that has to happen, but also everything else is more expensive, and the ticket price can only be so much. And you don't want to price out everybody so that it's just now someone who makes, 6 figures is able to afford going to the theater. Like
Yeah.
that is not the future we want.
Yep.
But we're in that moment and we have to figure out how we're going to move forward together and solve these real issues just around attainability and the economy of it all.
Yeah.
So that's a moment that I watch and
Yep.
I'm struggling with because we
Yep.
certainly at the Morrison Center the promoters that we work with are setting ticket prices based on what they need to be able to do
Yeah.
to make it work.
Yep.
So we help them with that, but we're not setting those ticket prices.
Mm-hmm.
So then we also do our own programming where we do get to set our ticket prices so that we can maybe make something a little more affordable. So if someone can't afford Broadway, we have a show that we're
Yep.
bringing in that's very high quality, but we're setting the price a little lower.
Yeah.
And the money that we do make on Broadway, we reinvest back into these shows for community, for, how do we champion the local arts groups that are in our community? How do we make sure that people are coming to see the incredible work that they're doing on our stages? So we do make money off of Broadway. That is true. I don't feel bad about that.
Yep.
That is important
Yeah.
because it allows us to reinvest
Totally.
not only back into the building. She's 40 years old.
Yep.
She looks really good,
Yep.
but there's more that needs to happen
Yeah.
to keep it state of the art for the next, 50, 60
Yep.
years that we hope she survives.
Yeah.
So this is all the things that I think about. These are the things that are hard.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that's changing so rapidly. I think about how the entertainment landscape is changing in general. And some of the things that I pay attention to is, for instance, Netflix. I keep bringing Netflix up, but they're just something they're very cool, but they're also very scary because they're very big. So what are they doing? They're doing a lot of things right. So for instance, I think everybody's really worried that the theater release in those theaters that's going to go away as an American pastime, that people are going to go and watch something in a movie theater. And yes, that's very sad if that does go away. But I do think it's probably already been happening for a while. People have their attention spans have shifted, things have shifted, or the theater releases itself needs to be more of an event that makes it feel special, which I think they're starting to realize how to do. So I don't think it'll end, but I think it will change. And there may be some theaters that close, and we could see that happen. But I watch Netflix because they are seeing an opportunity in the live market. So they've got a show on Broadway right now, Stranger Things, The First Shadow, which I've seen, which is absolutely wild. And I haven't finished the 5th season yet, for those of you who are Stranger Things fans, so don't tell me. But I know a little bit because I saw the Broadway show. But so they're already in the live space. So after the 5th season now released, their box office for that show has gone through the roof.
Wow.
So they see the connection there. I don't know if you know, but they've started Netflix houses. They've opened 2. This is really crazy. They've opened them in shopping malls. So
No, I do not know this.
Yes. So King of Prussia in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
I used to live in Pennsylvania, so I know very well. So this huge, giant, I don't even know how big it is, but total retail, all the stores. So some of those big stores have closed. So now you've got these big open spaces. So Netflix comes in and they're like, hey, we're going to take over where, Kmart used to be or whatever that was there. And they are taking their IP, their properties, Stranger Things, Squid Games, all these incredible shows that people love. And now they can go to the Netflix house and have an immersive experience. There's food and beverage there. So it's like a mini Disneyland.
Wow.
Where you get to play a role. You get to it's not a passive experience. It's, I am walking through the Squid Games. I've never seen that show, so I don't know what that's like. But or I'm walking into the Upside Down, or I'm, Wednesday and I get to experience what that's like in this spooky world. So brilliant, really, really super smart, very small footprint when you compare it to Disneyland or you compare it to Universal Studios. So much more scalable.
Oh yeah. I mean, the cost to build that out is not a Disneyland.
It's not a Disneyland. There's no rides necessarily. It's an immersive experience. So I'm very curious to see where they go next. I know they'll be in Texas, so they're in Dallas. They open one there, and I don't know what's next, but I find that really fascinating. And then are they going to do another show on Broadway? What is that going to look like? So I find that really interesting.
I didn't know that. That is very interesting.
Yeah. So if you're ever in Pennsylvania or in Texas, the Dallas area, go check out a Netflix house. It's very similar to, have you heard of Meow Wolf?
Yes.
So it's, in my mind, it feels like a very similar experience, except just based on their popular shows, as opposed to Meow Wolf really doing some innovative artist work.
Wow.
That's more off the
I could
wall.
really see, I could see that being something that scales. People always, again, back to, I mean, maybe even to the entertainment at your guys' space, right? People like going to unique things.
Yes.
Unique shows. They want to go to a museum. They want to go to a theme park.
Yeah.
This idea of how else can you put on live experiences where, and in a scenario like what you're saying Netflix built out, right? It's around something that so many people love. They are bought into it. They feel a part of it, but there's never been anywhere to go in person.
Yeah.
I think any type of live experience like that has so much potential.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where we go with that, because I think the more people will find ways to surprise folks, the better.
Yep.
And I think that I'm here for it. I love that kind of stuff. I know it's not for everybody. I mean, I know a lot of people that are like, I do not want to be a part of a show. There's Broadway right now, off Broadway. So Phantom of the Opera closed on Broadway and they opened Masquerade. Again, 3 stories, you walk through the Phantom experience. Same story, same music. You have to wear a mask. You have to dress up. I mean, there's like a code to like being in the show.
That's cool.
And some people are like, not for me.
Yeah.
But I think that is another level. And I think for our younger generation, sitting in a theater for 2 hours isn't really the experience that they're looking for anymore. Some people, yes, but some people also want, like, I want to feel like an event. I want to feel like it's something I cannot find anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's our challenge.
Yeah. There's always opportunity in the challenges, though, right?
That's right. Right?
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to find
Those
your way there.
Constraints are good, right?
There's challenges, but usually that is, you go back to just the people that are trying to solve those problems are creative people that are in that world. I think there will be a path.
Definitely.
In fact, maybe on that note, maybe more from just kind of a personal mindset side from you of like, how do you deal with difficulties and challenges you face personally?
Yeah. I mean, so I try to not, let the emotional side drive the reaction. Not always easy to do, but that's what I try to stay calm and thoughtful and curious. You mentioned like AI, not curious, human beings curious. That's where I try to really flex that muscle, is like, what's the, curiosity about why this is happening or what is going on. So, that's kind of how I deal with the challenges. I mean, we face them every day. There's always something coming up. And, I try to keep a really just steady hand and calm presence if possible. And then, I have my, sort of personal like way of dealing with it at my house, where I'm just like, okay, I have 2 dogs. I'm going to hang out and relax, or go for a walk, or go outside in nature, or have a hobby and do that. I mean, I feel like that's my biggest challenge, is not to just always be thinking about work all the time and how I'm going to solve these issues and problems and what's next and how do I keep the team motivated and excited about what we're doing, and help minimize the challenges and all of those things. Like, we all need a break from that. So
I think sometimes we do try to just work through the problems. And I even found some of this over the recent holiday break, where it was like, I I had certain things I was trying to work through, and I was like, oh, yes, I want to break and go have, family time and holiday time. But I was like in the middle of this problem, but breaking from it and disconnecting and not focusing on it for a little bit actually gives you some space to think and process in a way that is very different from being plugged into the problem, actively working on it. And it gives you some breathing room. And I think it kind of unlocks thoughts that you wouldn't have had if you didn't, which goes back to that. I'm not the one who's read these studies, but I know I've been told them. I'm like, you should go on a walk. You should
right.
That it actually helps you by taking breaks, getting in nature, doing things that are completely different from the work itself or the problem itself helps you often, find the path.
100%. And I think for me, that's my practice moving into, I was like, for 2026, what are the things, I always try to pick a couple words to work on. And my 2 this year are gratitude and impact, because that's an easy one to lose, is that gratitude for, who you get to go to work with every day, how wonderful the people are around you. And that's a gift. And that's something that's so special. And we can take it for granted or, kind of just push through the work. Over break, I read The Outward Mindset, which is a wonderful, easy, fast read and pretty basic, but also a good reminder about when you start to see people as people, not objects that are there to do something for you, but as people, and how you show up and what you are doing to help them do their job. And that really resonated with me because I think we often get just caught up in the work. Here's our to-do list. Here's what we have to get done. Here's the metrics we're going off of. Are we hitting it? Are we not? Instead of what can I do to make what you are doing easier and better? And if we all do that for each other, then all the things are going to work out. So I really loved that book. And I thought, the university has people who train in this outward mindset. And, we did a little bit of that as a team.
Cool.
And it is very cool. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good shift for me to be thinking about as we move into 2026. So gratitude and impact are my 2 words that
those are great.
Focusing on to adjust how I handle some, when the issues arise, and they will. They are coming.
Those are good. Those are good words. I think everybody could use those. The thought of how can you help others? I got that kind of taught to me at a earlier stage working with some business partners. It was something that was set off, and I was like, yeah, that's really true. It's like, what is my job as a leader for people under me or for employees? It's not, and I go back to seeing these visuals that I see on social of, a boss versus a leader, right? Where the boss is standing behind them with a whip and the leader's in front helping them pull the thing.
Right.
It is, I always think about that as my job as a leader is to serve the people under me. Of it's not that I'm in charge and do all the work. It's you're in a role for a reason. How can I help you do your job better?
Yeah.
And I have to split my time between all these different people. And that is really what makes the organization as a whole work, is when someone is driving the vision, but by supporting the people underneath them.
And reminding them of their potential. When things don't, are off and not going well, just this isn't what you usually do. You're usually here. How do we get back to where you are? What happened? What is the thing that's going on? I think is a really important thing to also have ready to go, because everyone's struggling with something at some point. It's just how life is. And so being able to see the human there and say, okay, what's going on, that this is all the things that aren't your usual amazing thing that you're doing. So I absolutely agree. And just full circle, when I was coming up and I worked, for the artist agency, I worked for these, bosses that you did not train to be a boss. You just got the job, and then, people did the work for you. You had assistants.
Yeah.
You could yell at them. You could throw things at them. Believe me, I saw all of it. And so that is, that was sort of like how I was formed. So I have a pretty tough exterior because a lot of that I'm like, I've seen it way worse. Like I've gotten staplers thrown at me. Like, this is wild. That was what that's what Hollywood was like back then, right? Like, it really happened. There was some pretty bad toxic behavior. And but that is the world in which I started working.
Yeah.
And that is not healthy, and it is not a good place to be. And so that is, while I have a tough exterior and it seems like, okay, that's sort of the armor that I put on to survive that, I don't have to keep it.
Yeah.
And so it's been a process for me to just learn how to shed that armor and be like, okay, this isn't necessary anymore.
Yeah.
No one's going to be throwing pencils at me, yelling at me, screaming at me. That's not what's going to be happening. But very, when you think about, I don't know, I think we've come a long way in the workplace from those days, but I think they pop up every once in a while. You hear some stories, you're like, oh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that for my team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious if you have some thoughts on this. Workplace culture, and also not even just within your organization, but part of what I'm thinking about is a lot of businesses, and I think maybe some of this plays into what we're just talking about. They've been, I think, over the last 20 years making that change of it's not just a sit down at your desk, do your job, make it. You look at these big organizations now where they're trying to make it a welcoming environment, almost like an event would, an attendee experience. A company is trying to make this like employee experience. The big firms have like free lounges and people are there all night. Like, what I'm trying to get to though is, what do you think businesses could learn from the creative and the arts and the live events? What do you think businesses could do to incorporate some of that thought into some of their company culture?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, it's so interesting because for so long, nonprofits have been told to behave more like businesses. So our structure is very similar to a business, how a business would be run. And a lot of that has to do with, if you have a board, the board is coming from corporate, so that was be more like, this is how you succeed. And I think for, most of us who are working in the event world or in the arts nonprofit came up as an artist or, worked in some way as a designer or had a hand in it in some way. And that's why you fell in love with it. And then you get on the administration side and then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be here at 8 and leave at 5. And my life looks like that. And no creative practice looks like that. Yeah. Honestly, and we know people have their energy flows differently when they're in, ready to roll up their sleeves and get going. And then others are like, I need a break at 2 because otherwise I'm just going to go crazy. Like, knowing and having that flexibility, I think, is really important. We've all went through the moment of working from home, and that's an option and everybody gets to do that. But then you sort of lose that ability to collaborate easily. And let's be honest, it's not easy to do that on a computer. Yeah. It's just not.
Yep.
So how do you balance that? And I don't know that we have figured it out, honestly. I think performing arts centers and people who work at the performing arts centers are a little bit of workaholics. And you have to kick people out of the building and make them stop doing what they're doing so they go home and rest. And that is not good. I'm not saying that's good. I don't think corporations should do that. I think but there's a lot of flexibility that gets built into the organization, and it has to be. And some people's jobs can be more flexible than others. Our production team, they're amazing.
Yes,
and they're often,
they are.
Yeah, they load in at, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. They have to be there when those trucks arrive from wherever they were before to unload whatever it is, 10 trucks if it's Wicked, and then put the show up and ready to go that night.
Wow.
It's an extreme amount of pressure.
Yeah.
They have an incredible system of ways that they make sure that happens. I hear again and again from the industry leaders, the producers who love coming to Boise and our team because our team is so efficient.
Yeah.
They're kind, they're reliable,
Yep.
all of these things, but they have very long hours. And the expectation then is one show closes, they load it out, turn it around, load in a new show. And it is brutal. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's very hard. And they don't get that time to be like, I'm going to work from home right now.
Nope.
That's not it. That's not the job.
The stage is not at home.
Yeah, I know. So they do probably feel like they live at the center. And so we have to figure out how do we build in the system to allow for people to get breaks, to feel that they're not on a wheel, that they get off the wheel every once in a while and recharge. And I don't know as an industry that we have solved that problem yet. So I don't know that we have a lot to offer
Sure. Okay. Yep.
other than work at it and try to find the flexibility and not get set in your ways on this is how it has to happen. And I think that is one thing that our industry, specifically theater, has been struggling with is it is a grind, and it's a constant, and you are expected to be 100% all the time, and it's impossible.
One thing that stands out though, even in that scenario, is that I would bet 98% of the people on the team love what they do, love theater, and when you build an organization full of people who love what it is that they do, then it's not like, someone is driving them, forcing them, it's, and you see that I used to play in music as well, or I played sports, and it's like in one of those scenarios where you love what you do, you want to be there extra, you want to be there early, you want to set up more, So I think one thing that does stand out that people could learn from is trying to foster the love for the why or the vision behind what you do as an organization, so that the employees have the same level of drive, for whatever the end result is as a business. Because I think that what a lot of other companies struggle with is normal businesses. They have a lot of employees that maybe don't love being there. They don't love the work that they do. And I think that starts to cause some of that need for how do we create this community or this culture within a business that is already built in, I think, to theater. It's like everybody already loves it so much.
That's right. You bring up a very good point. Yes, because if you've grown up in theater, you are, and you've done any kind of community theater, you're volunteering and you're doing it because you love it. And you are there after your school day or after work until 10, 11 at night. And you're doing that for months on end for maybe 5 performances in front of an audience, right? But you love it. And it is attributed to, I think, that there is an opening night. And it comes and you have to be ready for it, whether you're ready for it or not. It is an opening night and you will have to show up. You can't not show up because someone needs you. You are so integral to making sure that show happens. If you don't show up, you are letting down the entire cast, the entire production team, everyone that you've spent 4 months in like the trenches with. Now you've let them down. And that, I think that is what you're talking about, is that responsibility and that love of the work makes that responsibility, makes that glue kind of happen, which is hard to replicate in a job, all the time. But it is true. Theater people are known for really giving it their all, probably to the detriment of their health often. I mean, I worked with a director once who like didn't go to the dentist when he had a toothache. He kept directing, and then it got infected and he got very, very sick, and he was still directing, like laying down on this like little bed that got scooted into the theater.
Now.
Yeah. It's like, you are probably close to really having a serious issue.
Yeah.
You should probably go. But things like that, I have seen that where I'm like, oh, that's the extreme.
Yeah.
But I think there is something about when you have invested everything into your craft, because it is a craft. Mm-hmm. If you are in a job and you can see what you're doing as a craft, something to hone, then you have a love for it and you have a responsibility to each other. Again, it's like that outward mindset of having a responsibility to everyone on your team to show up and do the work and make sure you're working at the highest level you possibly can.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's always a balance.
Yep. Well, I think we've covered a lot. I do have maybe a couple more questions as we start to narrow in our conversation here. First would be, what are you currently most excited about for this year?
Yes. So it's interesting because, we work on seasons. So we're halfway through this season. So we have some amazing shows on Broadway still coming up and incredible, shows ahead through June. But you're going to laugh. Here's the thing I'm most excited about is we are renovating all of the bathrooms, the public bathrooms at the Morrison Center. And people might be like, that's exciting. And it's like, yes, because it was 3 years in the making. It took us that long to get to this moment. It was one thing that when I got to the Morrison Center, felt like it didn't match the experience that we were hoping for. They were old bathrooms. There wasn't really a style to them. And they were laid out really poorly. So we're hoping we're almost going to be able to double the amount of fixtures, which will help the lines. There's so much that's going to be benefited from our huge bathroom renovation. It's it's a $4 million project. It's the biggest renovation in the center's history. So I'm really proud of that. And the team has worked tirelessly to get it together. There's so many things to have to make sure that you are jumping through all of these hoops as a public building, as a state-run facility. So those are all things that we managed to do. We have incredible architects. Lombard Conrad Architects who helped us, create the building 40 years ago, are on board to make sure it happens. So the design is like so great. So I'm so excited about bathrooms.
Awesome.
I mean, what an odd thing to say, but it's true.
I was going to say it feels like, the adult thing. Like I recently, I don't know, I'm not that old, but I'm to the point that I'm like, I'm excited when I get new socks for Christmas, right? Where like, as a kid, you're like, that's what you're excited about. That's weird.
Yes.
And now you're older and you're like, yeah, it's those things that are, maybe it's not the most exciting show that's on the stage, but it's a very important part.
Yes.
And it's something that you're like, you know what it's going to impact because of the attendee experience, the issues, all of those things that very reasonable.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and I think for our team, again, just like thinking about from a leadership perspective, this is outside everybody's job description. No one has the job to renovate bathrooms. But it's taking all of us to come together and take a little piece of it and make sure it happens and keeps it on track and do all the things that we do every single day to make the shows run and to bring people into the hall safely and have a great experience. All of that always continues.
Oh, yeah.
That just happens. This is like the thing that's like outside of all of that we're really going to see a transformation that I think for me, at least, seeing the team come together for that has been really very cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So, and we're still going to do a show while we're closed down, which is super fun. And it's, again, like kind of an immersive, unique experience. So stay tuned as we announce that in the coming months on what that show is going to be.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And we we haven't actually been to a lot of shows at the Morrison Center outside of our own.
Yeah.
But now it's opened my eyes to what other events are there. And I'm like, okay, we're going to book and come to more shows this year. So.
Well, I love that. And if you want to check out Broadway, we've got some great shows coming up with Moulin Rouge.
I saw that.
And if you become a subscriber, I'm just saying, then you've got like set nights that you come and you can join the fun that's Broadway.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's
Come
great.
see us.
That's great. Okay, last couple questions.
Okay.
Actually, I think maybe just we'll end with one more question. Through your career journey and the things that you've learned, if you were to give some advice to someone earlier in their career.
Yeah.
I know it's a big question.
That's a big question. I think if someone wants to have a life in the arts, there's a misconception that you can't make a living doing it. Granted, being an artist in that freelance model is very hard. And I think you have to really, again, love it to commit yourself to having to have a life as an artist. But if I could open up someone's eyes that there's so much more, yes, you can still be an artist and make a living by applying some of those pieces of what makes an artist so special into an administrative side and help the place run and help the things happen. There's so much joy there and there's so many transferable skills. Our team is made up of people who came up through the theater or came up through sports, and lots of in between also. But those are like, I think, super fascinating because for me, it's like, okay, I didn't want to be on stage. I had fun doing that. I will always cherish those moments. I learned a lot about myself being in front of people and learning lines and doing theater. But where I really take those skill sets and apply them is in the day-to-day administrative work and leading a team and leading a venue. So I would say, make sure you keep your eyes open. There's a lot more to having a life in the arts than only being on stage or only being an artist. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's more to it. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing. And we will be sure to share more about the shows that you guys have and the opportunities with our listeners as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Matthew. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for joining me.